As the humanitarian crisis in northern Ethiopia continues to escalate, lawmakers on the Hill are calling on the governments of Ethiopia and Eritrea to stop the violence, but Representative Brad Sherman is looking to the U.S. Navy for help. "I'm reluctant to expose American armed forces to risk their safety at any time," Sherman said during a House Foreign Affairs Committee hearing this week. "But the American Navy could interrupt Eritrean commerce on the high seas at any time, and it would certainly be just to do so, as long as Eritrea blockades humanitarian aid to the people of Tigray." But the congressman's call for action by U.S. forces does not appear to be universally shared by committee lawmakers. A source familiar with the matter told Fox News the comment was bizarre and dated given Eritrea's months-long aggression in the region. Fox News could not reach House Foreign Affairs Committee Chair Representative Gregory Meeks, D. Penn, or Ranking Member Representative Michael McCall, R. Texas, for their reaction to the comments. Representative Karen Bass, D. Caliph, who sponsored the bill, and co-sponsor Representative Chris Smith, RNJ, also did not respond to Fox News questions. Since the conflict began, reports have surfaced alleging both Ethiopian and Eritrean forces have worked to stop food aid from entering Tigray and the surrounding regions. According to a report earlier this month by the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, OCHA, food aid was delivered to just 57,000 people in Tigray during the week of October 7 to 13, a figure that represents 1% of those needing food assistance. Though inconclusive reporting has made it difficult to identify how common this level of food scarcity is, reporting from previous months showed that 88% of the target population received food aid. Fuel has also been barred from crossing the border from the Afar region into Tigray, which has meant humanitarian assistance in the region has been greatly hindered. Following the November 3, 2020 attack on a federal military base in Tigray by the Tigray People's Liberation Front, TPLF, the Ethiopian military, Eritrean troops and Amhara militia have engaged in guerrilla warfare. According to the latest United Nations OCHA situation report, just over 1,000 trucks carrying humanitarian supplies have been permitted to enter Tigray since July. 15% of the 100 trucks a day needed to meet critical humanitarian needs. But the crisis occurring in Tigray has extended well beyond the region's borders. TPLF militia invaded the Amhara region in late June, the Amhara Association of America told Fox News. There is an estimated 4.5 million Amharas within the Amhara region under TPLF occupation, with telecommunication blackout, no electricity, no access to humanitarian aid, or journalists. Tewodros Tirfe, chair of the Amhara Association, said, "The violence in Ethiopia has displaced an estimated 4 million Ethiopians, 1.65 million of whom are from the Amhara region," the United Nations reported in August. "What we see there is tragic so far. We see 70 or 80,000 Tigrayans who have fled to Sudan, and we have to do everything we can to help them," Sherman told lawmakers. "But we see millions of Tigrayans who face death from starvation and attendant diseases. The bodies we see in the river are just the tip of the iceberg," he added. But the Ethiopian diaspora within the U.S. took issue with the congressman's messaging, noting he only referred to the ethnic Tigrayans and not other groups suffering persecution. According to UN OCHA, 63,110 refugees from the Tigray region have entered Sudan since the start of the war, but as reporting has shown, it is not just Tigrayans who have been targeted in the war-torn region. Representative Sherman's remarks did not mention that millions of Amharas have been under the occupation of the Tigray People's Liberation Front, TPLF, for almost 4 months, Tewodros said. Representative Sherman also doesn't seem to be aware of the thousands of Amharas who have been massacred by both TPLF and Oromo Liberation Army, he continued, referring to the November 2020 Mai Kadra massacre in which at least 700 Amhara were killed. Representative Sherman continues to be selective in calling out human rights atrocities in Ethiopia. Over 1.7 million people have been displaced in Tigray and thousands are believed to have been killed. Though due to unreliable reporting and blackout communications, the actual figures remain unknown and dated. Combined reporting by the Amhara Association shows that as many as 3,000 Amhara have been killed since the war broke out, though figures are expected to be much higher. Sherman did not answer Fox News questions on whether he has gained support from committee colleagues but stood by his calls for potential U.S. naval use against Eritrea. It is unacceptable to block food trucks. I take no position on the other issues in northern Ethiopia, he said. We need to get aid to all parts in Ethiopia experiencing famine or near famine conditions, he added, calling Eritrea intervention in Ethiopia unacceptable. And if it leads to genocide like we saw in Rwanda, then the US and the international community should consider various options, he added. The House Foreign Affairs Committee introduced a resolution in May that calls for the governments of Ethiopia and Eritrea to remove all Eritrean troops from Ethiopia, and for all belligerents in the conflict, including the Ethiopian National Defense Forces, the Tigray People's Liberation Front, and Amhara Regional Forces, and other armed groups to cease all hostility. The Biden administration last month threatened sanctions on those involved in the war in Ethiopia in an attempt to persuade leaders in the region to bring the conflict to an end. The State Department has called for an investigation into human rights abuses and atrocities committed since the war began.